Imagine a world where the sound of hooves meant the end of everything you knew. No warning, no negotiation, no mercy. At its peak, one empire controlled more land than any other force in human history. 12 million square miles. More than a quarter of the entire Earth's surface. Cities that had stood for 1,000 years gone in a single afternoon. Kings who had never bent the knee to anyone, crawling in the dirt before a man who had been born in a felt tent on the open steppe. For over a century, the world did not just fear the Mongols. The world organized itself around that fear. Farmers abandoned their fields before the armies even arrived. Merchants rerouted entire trade caravans to avoid lands the Mongols might one day decide to cross. Priests prayed not for victory, but for the mercy of a quick death. Generals who had never lost a battle in their lives chose surrender over the suicidal math of resistance. And then one day, it was over. Not with a bang, not with a final, glorious battle that history would carve into stone, but with something far more unsettling, something that empires almost never die from. It ended from within. This is the story of the last 24 hours of the most feared empire the world has ever seen. This is the story of how the machine that had conquered everything finally ran out of road. But here is the question that historians have wrestled with for 7 centuries and that no textbook has ever answered cleanly. How does something that powerful simply stop? How does an empire that absorbed the shock of the Himalayas, the Sahara, the Pacific Ocean, the armies of China, Persia, Russia, Poland, and the Arab Caliphate, how does that empire collapse without a single enemy strong enough to destroy it? Because here is what they don't teach you in school. The Mongol Empire was not defeated. Not really. No foreign king rode into Karakoram and planted his flag in the ruins. No rival civilization finally mustered enough strength to break the Golden Horde on an open field and send them running. No crusade, no jihad, no Chinese emperor's army ever delivered the killing blow that ended Mongol supremacy. The empire that had terrified the entire known world for 160 years died of something far more human than conquest. It died of itself. And in those final hours, as the last embers of the greatest land empire in human history flickered and gasped, the men inside it either didn't notice or didn't care. That is the most terrifying part of this story. By the time this video ends, you will understand something that changes the way you look at power and at history forever. You will see, hour by hour, how the world's most dominant force crumbled not from the outside, but from choices made in private rooms, in whispered conversations, in moments of greed and betrayal that no enemy army could have engineered better if they had tried. You will meet the men who inherited the legacy of Genghis Khan and squandered it in ways that would have made the great Khan weep with fury. You will understand why no empire in history, no matter how vast, no matter how feared, no matter how seemingly invincible, is ever truly safe from the rot that grows quietly at its center. And you will walk away asking one question that has no comfortable answer. If the Mongols could fall this way, who else could? Before we go any further, if you're the kind of person who watches history not just to memorize dates, but to feel it, to understand what it was actually like to stand inside one of these moments, then this channel was built for you. Every video we make is designed to put you inside the story, not above it, not outside it looking in through a classroom window. Inside it, in the room, in the tent, on the step, in the city, as the walls come down. If that is what you want from history, hit subscribe, hit like, and stay with me until the very end of this video, because the final hour of this story is the one that will stay with you the longest. Now, let's go back, all the way back to the beginning of the end. To understand the last 24 hours of the Mongol Empire, you first have to understand what it was built on. And what it was built on was a single, terrifying idea: unity. Genghis Khan, born Temujin, somewhere on the vast Mongolian steppe around 1162, did not conquer the world because his warriors were supernatural. They were not giants. They were not invincible. Individual Mongol soldiers bled and died like any other men under any other sky. What made the Mongol war machine the most efficient instrument of destruction the ancient world had ever seen was not brute strength. It was discipline. It was coordination. It was the radical, revolutionary idea that the will of one man, one vision, one strategy, one chain of command could be transmitted across thousands of miles of steppe, desert, mountain, and river without losing a single degree of its force. Genghis Khan built an empire the way an engineer builds a bridge. Every piece calculated, every weakness reinforced, every potential point of failure addressed before it could become a crack. The Yasa, the great law code of the empire, governed everything. How soldiers were organized, how conquered peoples were administered, how loyalty was rewarded and betrayal punished, how the vast network of horse relay stations called the Yam kept information flowing across the empire at speeds that no other civilization on Earth could match. At its height, a message could travel from the Pacific coast of China to the Black Sea in less time than it took most medieval kingdoms to convene a council meeting. That was the machine Genghis Khan built. And for the first generation after his death in 1227, the machine held. His son, Ogedei, expanded the empire further than even his father had dreamed. The great campaigns rolled west into Russia, into Poland, into Hungary. The Islamic Caliphate trembled. The Song dynasty of China fought desperately and hopelessly against the tide. The world continued to organize itself around Mongol fear. But Genghis Khan had also planted, unknowingly, the seed of everything that would eventually destroy his creation. He had sons, and those sons had sons, and those grandsons had ambitions. The Mongol Empire did not fracture overnight. It fractured the way a great glacier fractures, slowly, invisibly, under pressures so gradual that no single observer could point to the moment it began. After Ogedei's death in 1241, the cracks appeared for the first time. The succession crisis that followed was the first true test of whether the empire Genghis Khan had built could survive the most dangerous thing any dynasty ever faces: the transfer of power across generations. It could not. What followed over the next 2 decades was a slow, grinding war of politics, poison, and positioning between the various branches of the Genghisid family. Turagene Khatun, Ogedei's widow, maneuvered ruthlessly to place her son Guyuk on the throne. Guyuk died, possibly poisoned, after less than 2 years of rule. Another regency, another scramble, another council of princes called to decide the fate of the world's largest empire, while the world's largest empire quietly began to drift. By the time Mongke Khan, grandson of Genghis, finally consolidated power in 1251, the damage was already deeper than anyone could see clearly from the inside. The empire was still vast, still fearsome, still capable of campaigns that shook entire civilizations. Mongke's brother, Hulegu, would go on to destroy Baghdad in 1258, one of the most catastrophic single events in the history of human civilization. The moment the great Abbasid Caliphate was extinguished in a fire of burning libraries and drowned scholars. But even as Hulegu's armies were sacking Baghdad, the fault lines were spreading. Because Mongke died in 1259, and everything that followed his death was the long, agonizing unraveling of the last thread holding the empire together. stop for a moment, because this is where most history lessons lose the plot entirely. Most people, when they think about the fall of the Mongol Empire, imagine a single dramatic event, a great battle, a burning capital, a moment when the world looked up and said, "It is over." But that is not what happened. What happened was far more disturbing and far more relevant to understanding how power actually dies. The empire did not fall in a day. It fell in a direction. After Mong's death, his brothers Kublai and Arik Berk went to war against each other for the title of Great Khan. It was the first time in the empire's history that two Genghisid princes had taken the field against each other with full armies. The civil war lasted 4 years. Kublai won. Arik Berk surrendered in 1264. But the war had done something that no external enemy had ever managed to do. It had made Mongol fight Mongol. And once that door was open, it never closed again. The empire, already vast beyond any single administration's ability to control, now began to formally divide. The Khanate of the Golden Horde in the west, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, the Yuan dynasty in China under Kublai. 4 empires where there had been one. 4 thrones where there had been one. 4 sets of ambitions, 4 sets of armies, 4 sets of borders that now sometimes turned inward against each other instead of outward against the world. The most feared empire on earth had become, without a single foreign enemy delivering the blow, 4 smaller empires eating each other alive. And the clock was already running. By the mid-14th century, the Mongol world was burning, but not from the torches of its enemies. It was burning from plague. The Black Death, the most catastrophic pandemic in recorded human history, the disease that would kill between 30 and 60% of Europe's population and reshape the entire demographic map of the known world, did not begin in Europe. It began on the steppe, the very trade routes that had been the Mongol Empire's greatest achievement, the Silk Road, maintained and protected by Mongol military power, stretching from China to the Mediterranean, became the most efficient delivery system for mass death that the world had ever seen. The Yam relay stations that had once carried the commands of the Great Khan across 12 million square miles now carried something far more democratic in its destruction. Bacterium, flea, rat, horse, merchant, city, death. The plague moved along Mongol trade routes the way water moves along a riverbed following the path of least resistance, pooling in the great population centers that the Mongols had both conquered and connected. Samarkand, Crimea, Constantinople, Cairo, Paris, London. The empire that had once spread terror now spread something it could not control, could not tax, could not negotiate with, and could not defeat on an open field. In the Golden Horde, the Western Khanate that controlled the vast steppes north of the Black Sea, the plague struck with particular ferocity. The population of the steppe nomads, always smaller and more dispersed than the great settled civilizations they had conquered, found themselves unable to absorb the losses the way larger societies eventually could. Whole clans vanished. Grazing territories went unpatrolled. The military infrastructure that depended on a constant supply of young men raised from childhood to ride and fight began to hollow out from the inside, quietly, invisibly, one funeral at a time. Here is the paradox that makes this story unlike any other in history. The Mongols had been, in many ways, the most cosmopolitan rulers the medieval world had ever produced. Genghis Khan, a man whose armies had committed massacres of almost incomprehensible scale, had also proclaimed religious freedom across his empire at a time when Europe was burning heretics. He had promoted administrators based on competence rather than ethnicity. He had created the conditions for a century of transcontinental trade and cultural exchange that historians would later call the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace. The same empire that had destroyed Baghdad had also, for a brief and strange window of time, made it possible for a Venetian merchant named Marco Polo to travel safely from the Mediterranean to the court of Kublai Khan in China and return home alive to tell the story. The most destructive force in the medieval world had also been, paradoxically, one of its greatest connectors. And now, in its final decades, that same connectivity, that same vast network of roads and relay stations and protected trade routes was accelerating its destruction. Because the plague was not the only thing moving along those routes. Ideas were moving too. Islam had been spreading through the Mongol successor states for decades. The Ilkhanate in Persia converted. The Golden Horde converted. And with conversion came a new identity. An identity that was no longer primarily Mongol, no longer primarily loyal to the idea of a unified Genghisid empire stretching from the Pacific to the Danube. The grandsons of the men who had burned mosques and executed caliphs were now praying 5 times a day toward Mecca. The empire had not just divided geographically, it had divided spiritually, culturally, psychologically. And in the Khanate of the Golden Horde in the mid-14th century, a man named Toktamish would make one final, desperate attempt to reverse all of it, to reunify the fractured Western Mongol world under a single banner and remind the earth what it had once meant to fear the horse lords of the steppe. He would fail. But the way he failed, and the man who destroyed him, is the true final chapter of this story. The man who delivered the killing blow to the last coherent expression of Mongol imperial power was not a Chinese emperor, not a European crusader, not a resurgent Islamic caliph rising from the ashes of Baghdad. He was a Mongol, or near enough to one. Timur, known to history as Tamerlane, from the Persian Timur Ilang, meaning Timur the Lame, was born in 1336 in the Chagatai Khanate of Central Asia. He was not a Genghisid by blood. He could not claim direct descent from the Great Khan, but he had married into the Genghisid line, taken the title of Good Again, son-in-law of the Khan, and built around himself a military machine that was, in its ferocity and efficiency, the closest thing to the original Mongol war engine that the world had seen in a century. Timur was, in the deepest and most unsettling sense of the word, a Mongol who had learned from the Mongols. And what he had learned above all else was that the greatest threat to any empire built on fear is another empire built on greater fear. By the 1390s, Toktamish Khan of the Golden Horde and Timur were on a collision course that had been building for a decade. Their rivalry was not merely political. It was existential. Two men, two visions of what the post-Genghisid world should look like. Two armies that were, in their composition and their tactics, more similar to each other than either would ever admit. Only one of them would survive the encounter. And when they finally met in the summer of 1395 on the banks of the Terek River in the northern Caucasus, the last genuine chapter of the Mongol Empire's story was written in a single afternoon of blood and dust and broken lances. The Battle of the Terek River in 1395 was not the largest battle in Mongol history. It was not even the largest battle of Timur's career, but it was the most consequential. Toktamish, brilliant, ruthless, and desperate, had spent years rebuilding the Golden Horde into something that could theoretically challenge Timur's growing dominance of the Central Asian world. He had gathered allies. He had rebuilt his cavalry. He had, in the way of all great steppe commanders,
calculated his moment with the patience of a man who understood that timing in warfare is as important as strength. He was wrong about the timing. Timur's armies crossed the Caucasus in the spring of 1395 with the kind of mechanical, remorseless efficiency that had made the original Mongol conquests so terrifying. His flanks were secured. His supply lines were intact. His commanders knew their orders and had the experience to execute them without hesitation. When the two armies finally made contact on the banks of the Terek, Toktamish attempted a maneuver that had worked for Mongol commanders for a century and a half: the feigned retreat, drawing the enemy forward into a killing ground, then wheeling and destroying them from three sides. Timur had studied the same manual. He did not follow. The battle lasted hours. When it was over, the Golden Horde's army had not merely been defeated, it had been shattered. Its commanders killed or fled, its horses captured or dead, its soldiers scattered across the steppe in groups too small to regroup, too demoralized to fight, and too far from home to matter. Toktamish escaped, barely, with a fraction of the men he had arrived with. Timur did not stop. What followed was not a military campaign in any traditional sense. It was an act of deliberate, surgical destruction, aimed not at defeating the Golden Horde's army, that was already done, but at eliminating its ability to ever recover. Timur's forces swept through the trading cities of the Golden Horde's territory with a thoroughness that went beyond conquest into something closer to erasure. Sarai, the great capital of the Golden Horde, one of the largest cities in the medieval world, a metropolis of perhaps 600,000 people at its height, was sacked, its infrastructure destroyed, its population scattered. The Yam relay stations that had kept the Mongol communication network functioning across the steppe for a century and a half, dismantled. The trade routes that had made the Golden Horde wealthy enough to sustain its armies rerouted, redirected, severed. Timur understood something that purely military commanders rarely grasp: that an empire is not its army. An empire is its system. Destroy the system, the roads, the cities, the trade networks, the administrative infrastructure, and the army, even if it survives, has nothing left to defend and no way to rebuild. The Golden Horde never recovered. Toktamish spent the remaining years of his life as a fugitive, seeking allies among the Lithuanians, the Poles, anyone who might help him reclaim what had been taken. Nobody could. He died sometime around 1406, in obscurity, in a world that had already moved on from him. The last coherent attempt to reassemble something resembling the original Mongol imperial project died with him on the steppe, not in a final glorious charge, but in the cold arithmetic of a broken supply chain and an empty treasury, and armies that had simply stopped coming when he called. 7 centuries later, standing at the distance that history grants us, the fall of the Mongol Empire teaches us something that is deeply uncomfortable, because it has nothing to do with military strength, and everything to do with the nature of power itself. The Mongol Empire did not fall because it met an enemy it could not defeat. It fell because it forgot what had made it powerful in the first place. Genghis Khan had built his empire on a single, radical principle: that the collective will, organized and disciplined, could overcome any individual advantage. It did not matter if your city had higher walls. It did not matter if your army had better armor. It did not matter if your civilization had centuries of accumulated knowledge and infrastructure. If the Mongols were more unified, more disciplined, and more ruthlessly focused on a single objective, you would lose. That principle worked spectacularly, historically, almost miraculously. And the moment his descendants stopped believing in it, the moment the empire became, in their minds, a prize to be divided rather than a project to be maintained, the countdown began. Every civil war between Genghisid princes was a withdrawal from an account that had a finite balance. Every caravan of plague that moved along the Silk Road was a cost that no treasury could absorb indefinitely. Every conversion, every assimilation, every local identity that replaced the Mongol one was a thread pulled from a tapestry that was already fraying. None of these things alone was fatal. Together, over 160 years, they were everything. The most feared empire on earth did not die because the world finally found the courage to fight it. It died because it found the capacity to fight itself. And here, in the place where history usually waves goodbye and returns you to your life, is where this story becomes something more than a story. Because the pattern the Mongol Empire followed is not a Mongol pattern. It is a human pattern. Every institution you have ever trusted, every organization you have ever admired, every structure that has ever made you feel safe or stable or part of something larger than yourself, every single one of them carries somewhere inside it the same seed. The seed of division. The seed of short-term thinking overtaking long-term vision. The seed of individual ambition corroding collective purpose. The seed of complexity growing faster than the systems designed to manage it. You have seen it in companies that were once dominant and are now footnotes. You have seen it in movements that began with genuine fire and ended in committee meetings and infighting. You have seen it perhaps in relationships, in families, in communities you once thought were permanent. The Mongols are not a cautionary tale about military strategy. They are a cautionary tale about what happens when the people inside a powerful thing stop believing it is worth protecting and start believing instead that their piece of it matters more than the whole. Genghis Khan spent his entire life building something that could outlast him. His grandsons spent their entire lives proving it couldn't. The question that this story leaves you with is not a comfortable one. Look at the things in your own life that you have helped build, or that you have inherited, or that you belong to, and ask yourself honestly, are you maintaining them, or are you dividing them? Because the step does not care about your intentions. The step only remembers what you left behind. That is the story of the last hours of the most feared empire the world has ever known. Not a single battle, not a single villain, not a single moment where the sky fell and everything ended at once. Just the long, slow, human process of a great thing becoming less than it was. One decision, one division, one generation at a time. If this video made you see history differently, if it made you feel something beyond a list of dates and names, then it did exactly what it was designed to do. Leave a comment below. Tell me which empire you want to see next. Tell me what part of this story hit you hardest. I read every comment and they shape every video I make. If you're not subscribed yet, the button is right there. It takes 2 seconds and it means the next video finds you automatically instead of the algorithm deciding whether you deserve to see it. And if you want to go deeper, right now, tonight, there is another video waiting for you on this channel that follows the same thread. A different empire, a different collapse, the same terrifying pattern. It is linked on screen right now. I will see you in the dark.